back to the word trust so that I now can trust that I'm actually at wellsfargo.com or at chase.com as opposed to someone trying to spoof that. So you're creating trust between the consumer and the website.
So that's the first thing. It's very simple. It's just like, sort of like in the physical world, it's like passports, right? You verify, in fact, that I am connected to Amazon, for example. And then when you establish that, because that'll be in that certificate, then you actually, some information in that certificate is actually used for you to essentially create encrypted communication with that particular site. Effectively, they're sending you their public key that only they can decrypt. So when you encrypt everything with that public key, that other side will decrypt it. You have a secure communication. So there's all this stuff that's going on under the covers, but to make it quite simple, it's an authentication mechanism. You authenticate someone, and then once you authenticate them, then you can securely communicate with them in an encrypted fashion, and you have that encrypted communication channel.
And yeah, I think a lot of our audience, Autry, who are marketers, have had that day where they get a call and they say, "What's going on with the website? The certificates expire." So
Exactly.
that's when all of a sudden now it's like, why is it broken? I'm a marketer. I don't understand this stuff. So maybe just for fun, what does that mean when that next CMO gets that message from his CEO? Hey, it looks like the website's broken. I'm getting this message. I can't access it. Or one of my board members called me and said, your certificate's expired. Yeah, maybe you could explain one, why that matters, and two, how that breaks trust. And then how do marketers kind of think about trust in the context of their job? And most of us listening to this are not banks. Some of us do commerce over our sites, but a lot of us also use our website as a hub for our communication to prospects and customers and to build the brand, right? So maybe you can just put this in the context of a marketer for us.
And so, in the context of a marketer, frankly, we gave the example of a bank or an e-commerce site. But effectively, what has happened in the last decade plus is that if you're not using encrypted communications on your site, you are not going to be ranked well by Google. So literally every website is using the protocol HTTPS, the secure version. People don't use the just normal HTTP anymore because they've been found to be, that the HTTPS is so much more secure, establishing that connection. So even if you're not doing e-commerce, your website is, I would say, 99% chance that your website is using the HTTPS protocol, which means you have certificates on your public website. Now, going back to the question you asked, Ken, which is, this business of certificates expiring. So this whole process of, basically back in the day when you and I were at Netscape, the big challenge that Jim Clark put out there and people like Dr. Tahir El-Gamal came in and solved this problem was we needed to secure the internet. And basically working with the IETF and now what's called the CAB forum, this is a regulated business where certificates are issued and they have a lifespan and certificates expire over a given amount of time. That time has been shrinking also. And let me come back to that maybe later in the conversation, talking about quantum computing, which is another big area that is shaking everything up because the certificates have a particular lifespan and then you have to renew the certificates, get a new certificate because it actually adds to the security of it. Because over time, people can try to crack that certificate if they had a lot of time and a lot of compute power. So one of the ways you do that is you reduce the amount of time of the validity of certificate and change them around. And that's what happens. So when a certificate is expired, effectively the message that's going back to your browser, the person who's trying to get in front of your website, is that this website can't be trusted anymore because we don't know about the certificate. And that's the trust that you were talking about. And one very important part of this whole business is, as you know, there's a lot of technology in IT, there's a lot of mathematics and all that, but there's a lot of process also and integration. And all of us that are on the internet in a business to business environment have to make sure that these things actually work all the time, not just some of the time. And making sure that those certificates are up to date, that they're managed, you renew them before they expire, etc. Because when you have an expiry, essentially what ends up happening is that you have downtime. And more often than not, that's reputational cost, that's financial costs, that's all sorts of things.